All right, family, we're here. Module number 6, budget like a boss. Boss. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about budgeting, and we're going to put everything together that we've talked through module number 1 all the way to now module number 6. And budgeting is very scary for a lot of people, right? And because they feel like they're restricted, they can't do a lot of the things that they want to do, which could be true. However, what I will tell you is that all you're doing when you're budgeting is you're just telling your money where to go. That's it, which gives you the freedom to have control over your money. So, building a budget, you need a few things. These are very, very important things. So do not move forward before you do these things. You have to have all of your numbers. You have to. You have to have your income and you have to have all of your expenses. If you do not have these things, this will not work. I will repeat it. It will not work. So you have to have all of your income, all of your expenses. Now, what I will tell you also is budgeting is a lifestyle too. It's a habit. Now, it may be uncomfortable for you and or your spouse, if you're married, to do this because you've never done it before. But what I will tell you is if you do this and you stick with it, you will have financial success. You can't invest money that you don't have. So if your idea is to, hey, well, I'm going to grow my money, I'm going to do all these nice things with my money, you can't do that if your money is all over the place. So what we're doing now is we're reining the money in and then we're telling it where to go. But before we get started with the different scenarios that I've taken care of for you, is that this needs to be done again every month without fail. You need to do either a daily or weekly check-in with where you're spending money is going, right? And then also you need to make sure that it becomes a habit, it's a lifestyle that you're creating because this will be difficult, it will be challenging. My wife and I, for the first 3 years, I'll say, it was not easy for us. It was difficult because we were headed in the same direction, but it's like we both wanted our way, and one of us had to give up control to the other month by month by month. So it's a constant give and take if you're doing this with a spouse, and you have to recognize, you have to understand that. And if I had understood that from the beginning, then I believe that we would have had a lot more smoother sailing in the beginning. Okay. So I want to give you a warning that if you're married and you're just getting into this, please stick to it. Please. Because it will be difficult, it will be challenging, especially if it's your first time or it's your first time doing this with a spouse. Also, once you get good with this, it is your obligation to tell somebody else how you did what you did as far as getting out of debt, as far as building up your financial empire, right? We're not gatekeepers here. We're not doing that. We're passing down information to the next generation because we know how it feels not to know how to do this thing. So once we get good at it, it is our obligation to tell somebody else about it so they don't stumble and fall like we may have up until now. Okay? So this is a lifestyle. This needs to be done every month before the month starts, right? And we need to pass this information down to our kids. And I'm going to go back to before the month starts. The reason that we do this before the month starts, again, we're trying to control our money. So what we're doing is, say it's July and we're going into August. Your August budget should be set up before August starts. So all we're doing is we're listing our income, our projected income, and then we're listing our projected expenses based on previous months. So that's why it's important to know your numbers. So then you can write down and plug in using my budget, my free budget worksheet on my website. Plug in those numbers line by line by line, and we'll go through the scenarios. And that has to be done because when the month starts and we start getting money in for the month, then that's when we can start dishing out the money where it needs to go. If it needs to go on a credit card, if it needs to go to your mortgage, if it needs to go to your insurance company, if you're building up your emergency fund, like you have all of that all spelled out already. So when the money starts coming in, it gives you the control to start throwing the money out to where it needs to go. So without further ado, we are going to get into a few scenarios to set you up for financial success. Now, these different scenarios, please take your time with these because, again, if this is new to you, it may seem foreign, but the good news is you have these modules so you can watch them over and over and over again until it makes sense, until you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's go. All right, family, here we go. Buckle up. Here we go. We are now putting everything that we've learned together. We're putting everything together now. This is our budget tracker that we have on my website. It does not cost you anything. This is completely free. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a budget together, and I'm going to show you exactly how my wife and I got out of consumer debt and we were able to pay our house off. Cars, credit cards, everything. Everything's paid off. Now, what that means to you is if you can do this, then you will have a lot more money to do the things that you want to do. Vacations, um, uh, taking your kids to, different places, having them go to college at no expense to them, which then gives them a greater chance out here in this world. And you can be an example to those people who are coming behind you. So we are going to go ahead and get started. But before we get started, I want to make sure that you guys have all of your income, all of your expenses. This goes back to module number one about knowing your numbers and writing them down. This budget worksheet is the most detailed worksheet that I've ever seen. And that's why I created it to make sure that there was no um, guessing about what we were spending money on. This will spell everything out for you. But before we get started with doing the budget worksheet, if you look here, we need to put all of our projected monthly income. So if you are a 9 to 5 employee, this is income one and income two. So if you guys are married, you have income one, income two. So you and your spouse, hopefully your finances are combined, and then you can start putting your income in here. And then if you have any side hustles, things of that nature, you can actually put this in extra income. If you're a single parent and you have uh if you're a single parent, excuse me, and you have alimony or child support, you can put that in here because it does count as income. Every dollar that you have coming in matters. Okay, so we have to recognize that. Then after that, we have all of our expenses. So rent, mortgage, if you have a second mortgage on your house, gas, water, sewer, cable, waste removal, everything, right? And let's go back here. So once we put in our projected monthly income, this should be done before the month starts. So if we are in the month of July and we're doing our August budget should be set before the month starts. Why? Because Once we get the money in, once we start receiving income in, then we already have our plan set of how our money is going to get spent, if that makes sense. So there's going to be no confusion once August starts where your money is going to go because you've already gave your money an assignment, if that makes sense. So that's why it's going to be important for you, A, to do this before the month starts, have a plan, and then once the money starts coming in, then you can start sending the money where it needs to go. So these are all categorized by transportation, insurance, food, children, costs for your children, savings and investments, gifts and donations. So if you go to church, you give tithes and offerings, or if you believe in a charity and you do that on a monthly basis, you can put those in these categories here. If you have any pets, that's a thing as well. Here's an area of opportunity that a lot of people do not do. A lot of times people will uh, pay all of their bills, and then once their bills are paid, then they spend all the rest of the money. And that's where a lot of us get in trouble. So we need to categorize spending money for ourselves, for you and your spouse or your significant other. Another one that we don't do uh, is another hole in our boat. If you have any vices, um, marijuana, if you buy alcohol, things of that nature, you can put this in medical as well. Or if you're going to the doctors, things of that nature, you could put that in here also. So we need to list everything that we're spending money on. Okay, please make sure that we do this before we move forward with setting our budget up. We have to write down and go back to module number one and go over that so we're not missing anything. Okay, because we need all of our numbers true before we can move forward with actually setting our budget up. Okay, so taxes. If you have any taxes that you owe, you can put that in projected expenses as well. Then once you pay the bills in whatever category it is, then you put it in actual expenses. Okay. Entertainment, streaming apps, online games, movies, concerts, things of that nature. If you're going to a concert or anything like that, or you're going to the movies on a date or anything, you can actually put this in these categories. Okay. So again, it's very detailed. And here is debts. If you have any debts, we need to put these in here. So we have Capital One. If you have multiple Capital One cards or you have a Discover card, if you have a vehicle payment, you could put all of that in here. And then you see that there's an area over here that basically says remaining balances. We need to know what our remaining balance is. Why? Because that's how we're going to attack our debts, smallest to largest. Again, back a few modules ago, we talked about the debt snowball. That is the way that my wife and I were able to get out of debt. We used the debt snowball to attack our debts, smallest to largest. Why are we doing this again, Che? We're doing this because we are trying to create wins for ourselves. And if we attack the smallest debt first, then it'll give us that hope and belief that we can continue on knocking down debt and enrolling each payment into the next payment, into the next payment. And I'm going to get into that in our next scenario. Now, what we want to make sure is when we're putting um, our projected monthly income in, we put these numbers in here. And then once we start putting our projected expenses in, then it's going to come in over here. And this number here, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit, just needs to make sure that it does not exceed this number here. Okay. So please make sure that we do that. So now we're going to go into a few scenarios of how we're going to build our financial freedom. We're going to build this thing out. All right. So let's move on. All right, here we go. Here we go. So remember, I said projected monthly income. We have to put all of our income sources in. So we have maybe the husband or the wife's income, income number one. Then we have income number two. And then if they have a side hustle, this is the extra income. Or if you have, say, child support or anything like that, this goes into extra income. These cells are editable, so you can actually put whatever you want in here. Okay. So again, remember our monthly income or projected monthly income, and then all of our expenses need to match, or your expenses cannot exceed your income because then you'll be in the negative. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. This is a one scenario that we have. So we're going to get into it. So in this scenario, this couple has an $1,800 mortgage, okay, or rent. Phone bill is 130 bucks. The electric bill, because it's the summertime, is 350. Gas, water, cable, waste removal. Now, I understand that your waste removal may not come every month. However, if you know that it may be $75 every 3 months, then you can budget $25 a month. So when it's time to pay the $75, you have the money sitting there, if that makes sense. Okay. And the same thing goes for your water or your sewer bill. Okay. And in this scenario, this couple does not have any maintenance or repairs that need to be done to the house. They don't need any supplies and they don't have anything else going on. So their total house expenses are 2,455 bucks. Transportation, they have $180 in there for their insurance. They have $200, I'm sorry, $250 for fuel each month, or for this month specifically. So we have life insurance, $38. Food. This is a big one here because a lot of people spend a lot of money on food. So we have $1,300 for groceries, which I believe is pretty average. Now, if yours is lower, perfect. Okay. So in this scenario, theirs is $1,300. They dine out. They do Uber Eats, DoorDash. They go to a restaurant for a family outing or a date night, and it comes up to be 500 bucks. Now, what they're saying in this scenario is that we are not going to exceed $500 in our dining out budget. Okay. So the way that you make sure that you do that is that anytime you spend money, again, this is actual expenses, right? So we're projecting that we're going to spend $500. Now, if you go to a nice dinner and you end up spending, let's just say 300 bucks, you put the 300 in there, and now you know the difference is $200. So you cannot, let's just say it's the beginning of the month and you spend the $300. For the remaining portion of the month, you only have $200 left to spend in this category. Okay. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And this is how we're going to win with our money. Okay. So it's the summertime again, so there's no children's costs for school or anything like that. But if you guys have any medical bills or anything like that that you need to be paying for your children, all the categories are here: lunch money, childcare, anything of that nature. But in this scenario, there is nothing going on for their children. Now, in this scenario, they don't have a retirement account at this time other than their 401k. They are not putting any away. They're not putting any money away towards college. But this here in the scenario is an emergency fund. Okay. They do not have an emergency fund. And remember, we talked about in a few modules ago that we want to have anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 for our starter emergency fund. The reason that we have an emergency fund, again, is that we are trying to take our reliance off of credit cards. A lot of people have credit cards as their emergency fund. They have all the intentions in the world of paying the credit card off before the statement comes in or before the finance charges hit. And then unfortunately something else happens and then they have to use a credit card again. And now they're paying 28% for this credit card or whatever the emergency was. They're paying 28% on top of what they spent. So what we're doing is, again, we're trying to take our reliance off the credit card. So we're building our starter emergency fund of $1,000. So for this example, based on whatever monies were left over after we are done paying our bills and things of that nature, we only had $769 to put on our emergency fund. Okay, so keep that in mind. Charities is $410. This is what they're doing. All right. They don't have any pets, so we're keeping that blank there. Spending money for themselves. Now, uh, my wife and I, we have spending money for ourselves. My wife's needs are greater than mine as far as spending money for ourselves. So, in your scenario, you may get less than your spouse, or you may get more than your spouse, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, it's whatever you guys agree to. So if you have the same amount of spending money, that's okay. If one has more or less, that's okay as well. As long as you guys agree, that's all that matters. Everything is going to be household specific, but in this scenario, one spouse gets $50 more than the other. Okay. We break everything out also again. So hair and nails is broken out. But if your budget is tight, then you can use your hair and nail money in your spending money, if that makes sense. So, but ours, the way we do it is we have our own spending money and we break out the hair and the nails into separate categories. Okay. But if your budget does not allow that, that's okay. It's not forever, it's temporary. So just to let you know, um, that is there for you. Okay. So gym memberships, $10, say Planet Fitness. And now we're going to move on to taxes. Everybody does not owe taxes, okay? But this is a category for you. If you have federal, state, or local taxes that you owe money on, you can put that in as a projected expense. But in this scenario, we do not have that. Okay, so we're going to move on. Streaming apps, Netflix, um, Hulu, Tidal, Apple Music, Amazon Music. If you have multiple streaming apps, such as Amazon Music, Apple Music, Tidal, they all play the same music. Okay. So if your budget is tight and you don't have a lot of money, please check your streaming apps and make sure that you are not paying for multiple streaming apps that do the same thing. So if you need to get rid of Apple Music and Tidal and keep Amazon Music, then do that. Every little bit helps if you have a tight budget and you are trying to go somewhere financially. If you don't have an emergency fund, if you don't have, or you're trying to save for something significant, or you're trying to pay down debt, then unfortunately you don't necessarily have the luxury of having extra things currently. Only if you're trying to go somewhere financially, which you bought this course. So that tells me that you're trying to do something financially for yourself. So if you have multiple streaming apps, again, get rid of some of them that do not make sense. Okay. Now we're at the debt portion of the scenario. In this scenario, there is a Chase credit card. Okay. And remember, I said if what we're doing is we're doing a debt snowball. So we are paying off the smallest to the largest. In this scenario, the Capital One credit card is the smallest, okay? $1,209. The second one is the Navy Federal Credit Union credit card. The third one is American Express. And then the fourth one is Chase. So in this scenario, these are the minimum payments So the projected debt, here's your minimum payment, 200 bucks, 150, 123. Now, with this scenario, since there was extra money, this Capital One credit card was about $150 was the minimum payment. But because this is our smallest credit card, now we're dumping extra money on this Capital One credit card to then pay it off. So hopefully that makes sense. So now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll up top here. And remember I said earlier that this number, your expenses, cannot exceed your projected monthly income. If it does, then that means that some of your expenses need to come down. So in this scenario, what I would do if that was the case, which is not, but if it was, maybe your dining out needs to be lowered down, or your groceries need to be lowered down a little bit, or your spending money may need to be lowered a little bit, or maybe you do your own hair, maybe you do your own nails. Just giving you guys recommendations on how you can get rid of some of your expenses if your expenses are exceeding your income. Okay. So in the notes section here, there's no emergency fund, right? The plan is to have a starter emergency fund by the end of July. If we're in June now, we're trying to have our fully funded $1,000 by the end of July. So we're going to put this in our notes section here. And this notes section also will serve as mile markers for you when you look back over the months to see how far you've come from. Okay. As you're going through it, it may not feel the greatest. But as you start making strides in your financial future, and then you start looking back from where you came from, then you'll start to feel better. Like, oh my gosh, okay, back in June, I didn't have an emergency fund, and now it's October, and I have an emergency fund, and I was able to pay off a bunch of debt. Okay, so this is scenario number one. Okay, so this is our debt. We're trying to pay this off, smallest to largest again. So let's move on to our next scenario. So this is scenario number two. All right. Everything is pretty much the same. This is the following month, right? Everything is going to be pretty much the same. Let's just say that in this scenario, this couple is making the same amount of money, or their projected income is the same, right? Now we're going to go through and look at what may have changed from last month to this month. Everything in the housing is the same. Okay. Everything in the transportation is the same. Insurance is the same. Now, the difference here is that they lowered their dining out budget, which is fine, by 50 bucks. Okay. So now we're going to go down to savings and investments. Now, what you'll see here is that this number changed. In our last scenario, it was $769. The reason that this is lower now is because the goal is to hit $1,000 emergency fund, and we were able to save $769 the month before. So now this number is going to be lower. Okay, so that's one of the beauties of doing a budget. It gives you, again, mile markers, and every month is not going to be the same. You're going to have differences in your budget from month to month. Now, if you have a lower expense, then that means then you can put that money on something that's going to move the needle in your financial future, which would be, in this case, your debt. Okay. So everything in the donations is the same. There's no pets. Uh, the personal care, everything's the same here, right? This is going to be the game changer right here. So if you look here, this is the smallest credit card, right? So last month it was around $1,200 something. This month it's $829 is remaining. And because we are now we paid into our emergency fund $769 and we now only owe ourselves $231. The rest of that money can then go to paying off this credit card. Let's go. All right. So once we're now done paying off this credit card, this is July. So in when August comes, we can now dump this money, this $829, and snowball it into this $289. And then we'll be done paying this credit card off sometime around August. So within a 2 month span of time, we fully funded our emergency fund. We knocked off one credit card. We're going to be knocking off another credit card, and now we're cooking. If that makes sense. So once this credit card is finished, this Navy Federal credit card is finished, now we can start knocking off this credit card. And if you look here, we have $829, we have $289. That's $1,000, over $1,000, and then we have $123. This credit card should be paid off if nothing changes with the income, and we're still out with our spending money, and nothing changes. This credit card here will be done in 3 months' time, tops, gone. And then once we're done with that, now we can knock this Chase credit card off. So within a few months' time, you'll now have $1,441 back to your bottom line. What could you do with $1,441? Think about that. That's an extra $1,441. But now that we've paid off our debt, let's just say in this next scenario that all of our debts are now paid off. Now we want to go back to our emergency fund, which is $1,000. And then what we want to do is now build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And the 3 to 6 months is going to be of your expenses. So with that said, you have $1,441 back to your bottom line. You're going to subtract it from this number here because the $1,441 is no longer an expense to you. And your 3 to 6 months, or at least 1 month, is going to be $6,254. So let's just say you do a 3 month emergency fund. That's going to be $18,000. So if nothing else changes, then you're going to save $18,000 to your 3 month emergency fund. What that's going to do, once you build up your emergency fund, what that's going to do, it's going to put you at ease if something bad happens, something unexpected happens, if life starts lifing, if you if your hot water heater goes out, or you have damage to your home where you have to pay $1,000 deductible, it's not a catastrophe. It's just a minor inconvenience because you have money set aside to take care of the things that you need to take care of without having to rely on credit cards. So once your 3 to 6 month emergency fund is set up, then now you can do a lot of the things that you want to do and be carefree and save for the future and invest and things of that nature. So this in this scenario that we're talking about here should take you about a year, year and a half tops. If nothing changes and life doesn't life and everything stays the same in these scenarios, or if you want to go hard and go faster, then what you can do is start knocking out some of these different expenses that you have. Like if you want to remove dining out, then that'll give you $450 back to your bottom line to then knock out some of these credit cards faster, right? Or you're spending money. Like it when you're going through these scenarios, right? And when you're going through your own personal scenario, your financial freedom is going to come only as fast as you work for it. So if you're of the mindset that, hey, I can cut out some things now so I can live later, then do that. And every little bit helps. So if it's hair and nails, if you can cut those out, good, do it. If you can shave these down, maybe $100, do it. If you can shave your also what I didn't mention is that since you're for the following month in August, this number is going to go down to zero because in August your emergency fund is already taken care of. So now you can dump the $231 on one of these credit cards. That is the next smallest one, which in our scenario would be Navy Federal. So there are so many different possibilities for you if you work the plan. I'm telling you, this plan works because we've done it. We've paid off all of our credit cards. We paid off all of our debts. We saved up for things to pay for things cash. And again, that may not be what you want to do, but I'm telling you, paying something with cash and building it into your budget every month as an expense. And so if you're saving up for a car, you can make that an expense as well to put away money for a car. That's what we did. And I'm telling you, paying for something cash feels way better than having a car note or any type of note hanging over your head. It just gives you a little bit more freedom to operate. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to set up financial freedom for ourselves, which is then going to trickle down to our kids. Because if you get good at this, then you can show your kids how to do what you may have never been taught. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I know I threw a lot of information at you. And so you may want to go over this multiple times. Or if you feel confused or you feel like you need some one-on-one time, I do have one-on-one coaching on my website as well. If you go through this, multiple times and you still feel confused, like you don't understand what I just said, but hopefully if you go back and just go through it slowly, then all you're doing is logging your projected expenses. When you pay for something, you mark it down as paid, and the difference is going to be zero. Now, if you have a scenario where your gas, let's just say your gas bill you projected as $75, and then it comes in at $60, then that means you have $15 to put on your debt. Again, every little bit helps. I'm telling you, if you get into that mindset, then you'll start finding money all over the place to get you to your goal faster. So hopefully everything that I said makes sense. And let's get going, man. Like we cannot wait. My wife and I, we did this thing and we've been on our journey for the last about 10 years now. And I'm telling you, it feels way better now than when we started. You're going to, face some bumps and bruises along the road, but if you keep doing the thing, then it gets easier and easier every month. And this needs to be done every month. All right, let's get to it. Let's go.